Hi BookTube, my name is Juan. I am just one reader. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am here with my tea, with my very casual pajamas. It's a very casual video. I just wanted to do something really low-key, something really just natural. So I figured it would be a good time to do a wrap-up, but not a very in-depth wrap-up, just a quick, again, casual wrap-up of the books that I've read lately. So looking back into my videos, I think the last proper wrap-up that I did was books numbers 19 to 23, I believe, of the year. So I'm gonna show you and share some of my thoughts on the following batch. So these are books numbers 24 through 28, I think. So the first one, it was A Single Man by Christopher Isherwood. This was a book that I buddy read with Leo from A Little Book Life, and we've actually read many things since reading this one, but this one was a great one. It was a great way of starting these buddy reads with him. So what I loved about A Single Man, and I did love it, was many things. First of all, the story itself is really interesting. It's about this man who is a 60-something-year-old man. He's a homosexual man, and he's living in America, but I think he's originally from England. So there's many things going at once, and something else that I really loved about this novel is that it is very thin, it's very succinct, it's very precise, it's very short, but you can tell that the author put a lot of effort and care and craft into writing it, because there's a lot of themes, there's a lot of beautiful passages, beautiful and very insightful moments or experiences throughout the book, I should say. And I guess the best way to describe this book, in my opinion, would be as an experience, because it reads very much like an invitation to not just to experience the character, but to experience with the character, like you become the character. So this is a very difficult novel to be distant with. Like, this is a novel that requires that the reader not only become intimate with the character, but sort of inhabits the character's age, condition, skin, state of mind, state of grief. This is also a great novel about grief. So it's a novel that really confronts you with the realities of this character, and that's why I think it's brilliant. I also love the writing. I thought the writing was very understated and very subtle, but really gorgeous at the same time. So in a way, I would compare this book to Stoner by John Williams. I think they are similar in terms of the writing and the character, the writing putting you in the asking you to inhabit the character's mind. So if you enjoy Stoner, you should read this, and vice versa. It's a really great book. The next one was not very good, so I do not want to recommend this one, but I did want to mention it. This was How to Survive a Summer by Nick White. Leo and I, again, Leo and I decided to pick this up and buddy read it together because it sounded really appealing. It's about a male character who is in his early 30s, I believe. So he's a young adult, kind of, a new adult, if you will. And he is a horrible person. Well, not horrible. He's very unlikable. He's very disturbed. He is depressed, he is anxious, he has some issues and some baggage. And as the novel goes along, we discover why that is. And that's basically the result of a lot of trauma. Um, and so it turns out that this character underwent a lot of trauma and conflict at a conversion camp. So a gay conversion. This is also a gay themed book. So this guy, when he was very young, like in his teens, I want to say, he was sent by his very Catholic family, of course, or very religious family. I don't know if they were Catholic or whatever, but they were very religious. He was sent to a conservative, rigid, horrible, claustrophobic gay conversion camp. And of course, it's a story about corruption and sociopathy and perversion, and that would appeal very much to me, and it did. The only problem was this book sucks. It's very bad. It's very bad. It's not very interesting. There are some good scenes. I don't want to completely discredit this book because it does have some things going for it. The themes in particular, the conversation that it started within me and with Leo, but also within me, like the conversation that I started having in my mind about these issues, I thought that was very valuable. But other than that, the book is not very good. The writing is pretty bad, so I would not recommend it. I'm pretty sure there are better books about the same topics. Okay, so then I read The Shining by Stephen King, again with Leo, and I loved it. I had already read this book when I was like 10 or 11, so I didn't remember any of it. I remembered certain scenes and certain passages, but I did not remember it. And I do love the movie by Stanley Kubrick, but the problem is the book is actually quite different to the movie. So whenever I thought of The Shining, I remembered the movie The Shining, not the book. So I wanted to read this sort of in preparation for the new Doctor Sleep adaptation that is coming out later this year. But I also wanted to read it just to compare and contrast the book and the movie, because as I said, most of what all that I remembered from The Shining came from the movie. And this really was a great experience, a great reread. In particular, I really enjoyed the psychological implications in this novel. I feel like it's more a suspenseful book than it is a horrifying book or a horror novel. The horror elements in here, and this is something that I mentioned in my review, because I did make a huge, very long, in-depth review on this. So if you are interested, go and check it out. So some of the things that I said in that review were that the horror elements, or the genre elements that this book employs, are really in service of the psychological ones, the more literary themes of addiction, abuse, violence, the repetition of certain family dynamics. So really enjoyed it. And also I have to say, I think this might be the best Stephen King book in terms of, it's a very concise novel. It is exactly the right amount. I don't think this needs a lot to be edited out, which is something that I usually think of Stephen King books, like he could have cut a lot out from the book, but here I thought it was just perfect, just the right amount of information, and the reading experience was very entertaining. I read this 600-page long book in 4 days, so it was really, really entertaining as well. And I think it's a great book to begin your Stephen King adventure with. I think it's a great entry point. Then The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I already finished this book, which I was not supposed to, but I cheated because I am a cheater and I am naughty. Wink, wink, that's what he said. But no, I already finished The Goldfinch. Of course, I am talking about the Goldfinch read-along that we are doing with a bunch of people. It's hosted by me and by Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and we are discussing it every week. We are reading a portion a week, but I already finished it, and that's because the book is wonderful. I'm not going to say a lot in here because I don't want to spoil the read along. I want to save my comments for later, but I will say that, oh my God, this reread of the book just confirmed two things. Well, many things. One of them, Donna Tartt is just one of my top 5 writers. I don't care that she only has 3 books out because all of her 3 novels are 3 of my favorite books ever. Another thing that I confirmed was The Goldfinch is one of my favorite books ever. And I'm not exaggerating. I really think this book, ever since I read it for the first time in Spanish, which was like 4 or 5 years ago, I've been haunted by this book. Like there are moments when I will be just sitting in class or walking on the street or driving around in my car, and suddenly I will get like a wave of something that makes me think of this book. And that's happened to me ever since I first read it. And now that I read it for the second time, I just my enthusiasm, my love, my fascination for this book has been rekindled. There's a reason why this book has haunted me. I feel like reading this book has been not just a reading experience, not just a valuable reading experience, but a valuable personal experience because it's made me look deeper into myself, and that's not usually something that happens to me with books. This book really made me question me, criticize me, and deconstruct me. And what else can you ask from a book, right? It's also, of course, the writing is perfect. The characters, there's so much that I want to talk about. So I'm just going to save all of my thoughts for later because otherwise we will be here for 3 days. Trust me. But, well, the one thing that I want to say is I loved how this book played really elegantly, especially in the end, just at the last pages of the book, I think were really well played because I think Donna Tartt really played very well with the themes of corruption and brokenness in people, but also redemption. And she did it in a way that was never corny or unbelievable or cheesy or sweet. So yeah, that's The Goldfinch. One of the best books ever for me. And finally, the last book that I want to mention here today is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. This is book 1 in Historic Materials. And I am reading this sort of as a read-along, like an open read-along. So if you want to join in, you can just read the book and we can discuss it here on YouTube. I will be posting a video for every book in the series. We will read Historic Materials and then we will go ahead and read the Book of Dust as well. There are many things that I could say about Historic Materials. Rereading this book now made me think of a lot of psychoanalytical concepts, which is what I tackled in my review, in my video. But it also confirmed and reasserted just how great a storyteller Pullman is. He really is one of my favorite writers. And something that I love is that I've read many of his books, most of his books, and he always feels like a different author in all of them. He always has a distinctive or a specific voice. So this year I am also rereading the Sally Lockhart Mysteries series by him, and reading this and reading that one is really interesting because you can see that they are born from the same author, but it feels very different. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite in the series though. I gave it 4 stars. I had some problems with a little bit with the pacing and stuff like that, but it's a pretty good book. And it's a great introduction to my favorite trilogy. And so that was the last book that I finished. And now the book that I am currently reading right now is book number 2, which is The Subtle Knife, with a very, very cool green metallic cover. And I have to say, this is 1,000 times better than book 1. Don't get me wrong, Northern Lights is great, but I feel like Northern Lights feels like just a piece of a puzzle that is much bigger and much more fascinating and much more exciting. And The Subtle Knife starts putting that piece of the puzzle together with many other pieces of the puzzle. So reading The Subtle Knife really feels like you are now finally getting into the groove of things. So if you are one of the people who has read Northern Lights but never continued on with the series, maybe because you didn't find it as interesting, or maybe because you found it a little bit boring, or for whatever reason, I would strongly urge you, persuade you, hopefully, to check out book number 2, which is shorter, much shorter, and it's much better. And we start, it's like Philip Pullman is now in full writing Philip Pullman mode, and he's like throwing all of his wonderful shit at us. And there's a chapter about this character, and then the next chapter he shifts focus, and now we are following another set of characters, and everything is going so fast, and it is so freaking interesting. So I will probably be reading this for 2 days, and for 2 more days, and I will finish it. It's so good. Anyway, that's my wrap up for today. Thanks for joining me, and tell me, what have you been reading?